Welcome to Scenic Backdrop from concept to completed design. All right, steps for this project. At this point, you should already know what's needed for your set from reading the script. You've made decisions about the time period, and you've chosen your aesthetic based on themes and moods. So we're going to pick up the process from there. Next steps, you're going to list stage dimensions for your backdrop and determine scale. You're going to sketch out your design. Remember, this should be functional, so it's serving as the set for the one act. And you're going to do a final version of the design and then an artistic rendering in color. I'm also going to explain on this a little more about what I'm looking for with verbal and visual steps for your two chosen elements. All right, these are dimensions for basic proscenium and thrust stages. So you either are going to choose to do a 20-foot high by 40-foot wide backdrop for proscenium or a 15-foot high by 25-foot wide one for a thrust stage. All right. Scale for painted scenery, I don't want you to do mathematical proportions for this. I want you to do a painting or drawing in perspective so that elements are proportionate to the actors and each other. If you choose to put a house on the foreground of your set or an interior scene that reaches the floor, it should be a room with 8-foot ceilings or the outside of a house that's 12 feet tall. If there's something off in the background, maybe out of a window of an interior, or you're looking at a landscape and there's a house far away, that physical house on the actual backdrop might be 6 feet tall or smaller. So on your drawing, I want it to be proportionate as if it were off in the distance. And I breezed past it, but I just want to mention, don't paint a floor onto an interior backdrop. It's visually confusing for the audience. They think the actors should be able to walk up onto that floor, and that floor is two-dimensional. That is not possible. So if your backdrop is an interior, it should reach the bottom of the drop. And then the floor of the stage should be the floor that's meeting that wall. All right, so I'm just going to make up a play. Let's imagine it's happening on a proscenium. So there are my dimensions. We're going to imagine it takes place underwater in a pond. That's because I took a picture from a calendar and used that as if it were the scenery. We're going to pretend the themes are our place in the natural world and wonder and understanding. I want it to be light and playful and magical. So in order to sketch out my design, I need to go online and look at some underwater photography. Found some beautiful things of water lilies in a pond. So here's an original sketch for my idea. On this original sketch, I made some notes about how I'm actually going to paint it in my home. So background is watercolor wash, and then I'm going to use ink or acrylic or colored pencil in order to do the lilies themselves. I've also made a distinction about where the water ends and the sky can be seen. And you'll note the stems go all the way to the floor, and the ones that are further away are teeny tiny compared to those looming up huge at the top of the piece. All right, your final version of your sketch. This could be where you take a picture of that original one I just showed you, and then you take a picture again once you've detailed it. You could just erase over it. You could do a new piece of paper. You could do a series. It doesn't really matter. At some point, you're going to have a completed piece that has the movement and the form and the balance you're looking for. So that's what we're going to use to do the next step, which is the artistic rendering in color. For this color drawing or painting of your final design, you're going to need to plan ahead, because you're going to have to include instructions. My suggestion to you is to either videotape or take pictures of or save versions of each step of whichever process you're going to highlight. So you don't have to show me how to do your entire design from start to finish, but you're going to pull out two things. So I'll tell you a little more about that. I did not paint this. So again, this is photography. It's by Remy Masson. I don't know how to say that, but we'll guess. And here is an image that I'm pretending is the finished backdrop, which I just used for saving time. All right, so I'm going to choose two elements. Remember that original sketch where I made some notes about how I was going to do it? That's what we want, a visual and a verbal explanation for each step. And you're going to explain techniques in detail. So for example, that watercolor wash that I'm making in the background, here are the things that I need for it. Here's what I'm actually going to do, and there's a visual for what it looks like when the whole sky is painted, and then there's a visual for what it looks like after I've lifted some of that color off with the paper towel, explaining my techniques. You can obviously pause or slow this down if you need to look at it more detailed. And And then here are the steps to finish it. So I'm going to do a little cleanup job. So I've got a clean brush, and then I'm going to switch over to the greens, and I'm leaving that white space in between because it's part of the aesthetic of the finished piece. And then, of course, if I were doing this for my product, I would need to let that original wash dry before adding other layers. So, highlighting technique number 2, I'm going to use acrylic paints for the lilies. Here's some supplies that I needed. Here are the steps. This involves the sketching because it's a little more precise. If you're doing a wash, you're just doing broad, expansive color. You don't need to sketch that out. Mixing some colors, painting the background with a small brush, adding accent colors, doing some blending, doing some detail work. And I'm noting on the side with the steps how I use the brush to create those effects. Okay, here's some tips and tricks. You can do any of these or something similar. So if you want to do a finished painting or drawing that looks the way you want and then make it bigger or smaller, you can. You could also do little thumbnail sketches of, let's say, a lily in this example, and then say times 20. You could use technology you have available to enlarge or reduce the size. You could draw from photographs that you've taken or look at ideas online and make your own version. If you're interested in looking at some professional backdrops done with artists and teams of people and technology, here are some options. They're pretty hilarious, but I wanted to pull some things that were different types of backdrops and different types of ideas. So you're welcome to look at these links if that's helpful. All right, thanks so much. Let me know if you have any questions or need any help.